I am here with Dr. Matt Deaton to talk about his new book, Ethics Bowl to the Rescue, Saving Democracy by Transforming Debate. Thank you for being with us, Dr. Deaton.
My pleasure, Sahar. Thanks so much for having me.
All of these pages have something to do with the Ethics Bowl idea. You talk about AI in Ethics Bowl, debate in Ethics Bowl, our society in Ethics Bowl. Let's just start with the first two words of your book. What's an Ethics Bowl?
Yeah. So for folks who aren't familiar, ethics bowls are debate variants where teams aren't told what to think. Typically, in a traditional debate, teams are told when they arrive at an event, Team A, you're for it. Team B, you're against it. Now battle it out. In an ethics bowl, the teams are given a case set, usually of about 15 cases, several months before the competition, and they're invited to think them through and to decide for themselves what makes the most sense. And the cases can be on a variety of topics. It can be interpersonal ethics. It can have something to do with politics or policy or law. It could be in bioethics, something to do with the environment, with engineering, lots of different topics. And when they come to the event, they're asked to present their best argument, to explain what the morally relevant nuances are within the case, what the morally relevant factors are, and they're also asked to proactively consider an objection and respond to an objection from what they might imagine to be a reasonable critic. The teams aren't required to attack one another. In fact, they're not required to even disagree. They can build on one another's arguments. However, in almost all cases, teams do disagree and they do find points where they differ and ways that they think that their other team could have done things a little bit better. And so the point is to work together in a collaborative way to expand everyone's understanding and also to model ideal deliberative democracy, to civilize discussions over difficult moral and political issues.
Beautiful. So I was going to ask you what is the difference between the ethics bowl and debate, but you've already answered some of that. And so now I want to dig a little bit deeper. You wrote this book as if the ethics bowl can save democracy, and built into that is your definition of an ethics bowl being very different than debating. Can you tell me a little bit more about what you just mentioned, civilizing? I guess you mean like civics, civil discord, civil dialogue, conversations. So
Yeah,
can you tell me more about this?
yeah. And I use that contrast with traditional debate because that's the default model that the American education system uses to encourage young people who are future leaders, who are interested in possibly civil service and politics and whatnot. It's the default model that we funnel our youth into, and it teaches them to be, in many cases, closed-minded, to simply receive a view from some authority and then defend it at all costs, to not think for themselves. And so, since that's what most people take for granted as what the debate model is and what it should be in the United States in particular, in other areas as well, I usually contrast ethics bowl with traditional debate and explaining what it is. And it's definitely an attempt to civilize civic discourse. I'm sure anyone that's paying attention can tell that politics in the United States and other areas of the world is becoming more and more contentious. Populations have become more and more divided, less and less prone to discuss issues in a kind fashion, looking for solutions, more prone to demonize the other side, more prone to assume malintentions from the other side. And Ethics Bowl intends to break down a lot of those barriers to help us develop a sense of fallibility, a sense of humility. I really like how Ethics Bowl requires teams to proactively think about how someone might reasonably disagree with them. That teaches us that we're not knowers of all things political or all things moral, that we certainly could be wrong. And something interesting in Ethics Bowl is that if a team changes its mind during the competition, if they've done so for good reason, that's okay. That means that they're open to new reasons. They're open to collaboration with the other team. They're open to shifting their view if given good enough reason to do so. And that's, of course, unheard of and unthinkable in traditional debate, where the teams are expected to use whatever rhetorical device they can to defeat the other team, to beat them into submission, to never give an inch, to never concede that the other team has made a good point. And of course, when you see that in our politics, it just leads to more and more an escalation in antagonism, more and more political violence. Now, of course, the subtitle of the book is Saving Democracy by Transforming Debate. But I take pains in the book to explain that it's not a quick fix. It's not a silver bullet. It's not a sure thing. It's a strategic solution. It's something that's going to take time to build into our cultural norms. And but I think to the extent that we're able to supplant traditional debate, to the extent that we can convince the folks, the good-hearted, well-intentioned folks who are involved with traditional debate, to give Ethics Bowl a try, to the extent that we can do that, we're going to help bring about a more peaceful, solution-oriented culture.
Beautiful. I have so many questions now. One is how could humility be the virtue, but also a vice, and talk about that sort of deal that came up in your answer. But I'm really more interested, so ignore that question. Although I want to think more about chapter one if we have time.
Sure.
What do you think would happen if we, as a society, in our communities, continue on the route that we're on currently, not taking your words of wisdom and warning and starting to think about how we talk with each other in this way you propose? What do you think would happen if we continue on the route we're on?
I think in terms of escalating political violence and unraveling of civic norms, I'm afraid that that's going to continue regardless of to the extent that we adopt ethics bowl, because it's not going to be a quick fix, and we're pretty far gone at this point. We've got a lot of different forces, both social and technological, that are dividing us, from social media and AI deepfakes, and just different traditionally powerful populations in the United States in particular losing much of their power and feeling insecure about that and the backlash that that's caused. I don't think Ethics Bowl can fix any of that stuff quickly. So even if it's implemented, we're still going to see worse violence until it reaches possibly a crescendo, and then maybe we can recover. But to the extent that we can adopt Ethics Bowl rather than traditional debate, you're going to see more wisdom through that process. You're going to see a rise in the citizens who demand higher standards from our leaders, who are looking to members of what we might traditionally consider the opposition as persons, as other people that are interested in the public good, not as enemies, but as potential friends. And so it's going to have that peacemaking effect, but it's not going to be instant. And I don't think it's the case that it would just automatically fix everything. It's not a cure-all, not a silver bullet. It's a strategic, slow growth solution, but it's going to take some time.
Okay, let me think along with you about this. I'm a part of the problem, just putting my cards on the table. So when I teach philosophy, which I'm a philosophy professor, so that's what I teach, whether it's in my intro class or in my ethics class, I do assign them arguments to understand and then support at all costs. And then I have them swap roles. So I tell my students to try to figure out how to support a view, even if they disagree with it. And so those are the tools I'm trying to equip them with. And as a philosophy professor, I'm able to read your book, realize how much wisdom is in here, and then attempt to do some of the things you suggest, even though I don't run an ethics bowl. You talk in here about coaches and judges and different people as like individuals who can start to shape people's methods of conversing with each other. Can you tell us more about whether you think you really do need ethics bowls and teams that are doing ethics bowls, or can just a mom of three teach their three kids how to do this? Could a basketball coach try to bring some of this in? What if you're a K through 12 teacher? What if you're just sitting on a bus and you're listening to two people debate? Is there any way to bring about the message in here without the ethics bowl specifically?
Oh yeah, most definitely. The biggest benefit of an actual competition is to give the teams and the coaches ample reason to thoroughly prepare. So if they know they're going to have to go somewhere public and they're going to have to present their view and then discuss their view with another team that's going to be sympathetic and charitable, but at the same time going to be looking for the best argument. If they know they're going to be not grilled by judges, but friendly pressed by judges, then they're going to have to have their ducks in a row. They're going to know we're going to have to defend this publicly, and so need to do a really good job and a thorough job. But there's no reason at all that you have to have a competition to bring about most of the benefits of the Ethics Bowl model. And I would very much try to convince you, Sahar, to adopt this in your classroom. There's a little guide at a website I run, ethicsbowl.org, on the resources page called Ethics Bowl for the Classroom. And it's very simple. It just shows how to bring about an Ethics Bowl-like discussion in any classroom. This is at any grade level. This is practiced from elementary schools through middle schools, high schools, on the college level. It's practiced in a Ethics Bowl variant called Ethics Slam in coffee shops and in bars. There have been Ethics Bowl college competitors that have went into retirement communities to discuss this. It's practiced all over the world, from, of course, coast to coast in the United States. It's in Australia, in China, in New Zealand. In that area, it's typically called Ethics Olympiad. In the UK, it's called Ethics Cup. But it's the sort of thing that it doesn't have to be centered around a particular competition. Again, the competition is just to give, the purpose of that is to give the teams ample incentive to prepare. But you could, a homeschool mom could, or a dad could bring this into discussions. And the easiest way to do that in the classroom would just be to pick a case. And here's the National High School Ethics Bowl regional case set. I coached a team this past season just a couple of months ago, and a nice variety of cases in here. The first one here, whose germline is it anyway? It's about editing your genome in ways that's heritable. You could pass on into the human genome in general, not just gene edits that modify your own genome, but could then be adopted into the genome, and the risk associated with that and the benefits that could possibly come about. Paving the way, that's a simple case about whether or not to pave a public park trail to make it more accessible to folks with disabilities. But the trade-off would be that perhaps it might degrade the natural environment, make it more difficult for the vegetation to grow and such. Public record, private lives, that's a case about a roommate that through accident finds out that her roommate, her boyfriend, was previously married and he hasn't disclosed it. And so she has this dilemma, should I tell them or not? And so any educator, any person interested in checking out the Ethics Bowl way could just do a Google search for a case set, National High School Ethics Bowl, Middle School Ethics Olympiad, Intercollegiate Ethics Bowl. Take a look at the cases, and they're usually just about a page each, and they usually come with discussion questions. And then ask yourself, which of these is most interesting? And then you could just simply read it to the group, regardless of the group size, and then just ask them, okay, so what are the basic facts? What's going on here? And then, okay, once you're clear on the basic facts, what seem to be the morally relevant nuances? What are the values in tension? Because every Ethics Bowl case is intended to be difficult to resolve. It's not going to be something that's clear cut, that's obvious. There's going to be the ability to make a reasonable case for or against lots of different directions. So what are the values in play here? And then, well, what do we initially think? What are some initial responses to this? What do we think our position should be? And you're probably going to get a variety of different positions, and that's cool. And then once you've done that, you can then imagine, well, how might a person reasonably disagree with us? How could a thoughtful person have listened to our argument and have still disagreed? And how could you respond to that person? And so that's the sort of thing that you don't have to run through the back and forth where a team presents, another team comments, a team replies, the team goes back and forth with the judges. You could just simply have an open discussion about any of these page-long cases on a variety of topics in most any context, including coffee shops and bars.
Yes, thank you. So I quickly just went to the ethicsbowl.org and saw all of these resources that you have available to people. And then also I can find your book here. And this is absolutely great what you've done with this website and the one that you just mentioned. So thanks for all of this work. You're obviously very passionate about making our world a better place through dialogue, a particular kind of respectful way to talk with each other about important topics. So
Thank
I
you.
want to ask you who you think can and can't do this stuff. At first, I was asking you about who could sort of facilitate or moderate, and it sounds like you think there's a value in particular people who are trained to do it. You even mentioned in the book how anyone could be a judge, but if someone had moral training or ethics training or had a PhD in philosophy, they'd be better at it. But I want to think with you about who could be receptive to learn these kinds of methods and techniques that you're talking about? Could it be really, really young people? Could it be incarcerated people, like someone in jail? Would it be useful to try to teach them this? Is there anyone excluded, or can anyone learn this stuff?
I don't think I don't think anyone is excluded. On the back of the book, I have some different pictures from. Yeah, there you go. You got it as well. Got some pictures there up here. This is a group of ethics Olympiad participants, and ethics Olympiad is just ethics bowl in Australia and such. There's a gentleman named Matthew Wills who does a great job running out there. They're typically via Zoom, but you can see these are elementary school age kids. There's Ethics Bowl founder Bob Ladenson. He's the guy that's behind every bit of this from Illinois Institute of Technology, and that's Max Minchell. He founded and organized the Southern California High School Ethics Bowl as a high school student himself, which was amazing. But you mentioned who might be excluded. Here's Georgia Military College. Down here, this is an ethics slam in Ann Arbor, Michigan, where they're at a bar doing a variant. These are some scenes from Intercollegiate Ethics Bowl National Championships. But this picture right here is from San Quentin Prison. I believe it has a different title now. They don't call it a prison anymore. But this gentleman up here with all the little dashes around him, that's Kyle Robertson. He's a philosophy professor at, I believe, it's a Northern California university out there. I forget the name of the university. Might forgive me, Kyle. But he brought his Intercollegiate Ethics Bowl team to San Quentin and worked with some incarcerated students there. And you can see some of the folks here. And they held an Ethics Bowl competition. And the beauty about this is it was recorded. They had a film team come in and make a nice video, and anyone can watch this. It's 5 or 6 minutes long. And sometimes ethics bowl cases will involve incarcerated folks. It'll ask questions like, for example, in a recent case pool, there was a question as to whether or not it'd be okay for prisoners' sentences to be reduced in exchange for organ donations. So if a person were willing to donate their bone marrow, would it be okay to reduce their prison sentence? And this, or a kidney or whatever. And this was a real world issue, which almost all ethics bowl cases are real world, unless they're interpersonal ethics, and sometimes it's a little bit fictional. But this was a proposal in Massachusetts. And I don't think the legislature passed it, or they haven't yet, but that was a question. And when I discussed this with my team, some team members who weren't familiar with the prison systems and they've just seen things, caricatures on television and such, they understandably, especially young folks, understandably kind of discounted the rehabilitative ability of the prison system. And they discounted the moral agency of incarcerated persons. And so I said, okay, hold on right there. I pulled up the video of incarcerated students actually participating in an ethics bowl. And you could see the light bulb go off and how there was a change in disposition and how they were amazed that these folks that they had assumed had a certain attitude and certain capacities. They could see them doing what they're doing, ethics bowl, thinking about these difficult moral issues in such a thoughtful, compassionate fashion. And so the cool thing about that competition at San Quentin is that a couple of the judges that day from Utah went back to Utah and brought it to Utah prisons. And some folks in Washington State heard about it and brought Ethics Bowl to Washington State prisons. And some folks in Maryland heard about it. And some folks in Massachusetts heard about it. And so now ethics bowls are practiced within prisons across the United States. Those are the states that I know about, but I suspect it's being spread elsewhere. So I don't put any limits on the folks who could do this. It doesn't matter about age, geography doesn't matter, and even folks who have been convicted of crimes can most certainly do this. And
So I see.
oftentimes, sorry, the coaches that work with the incarcerated students are so thrilled that they're so serious and so dedicated, probably because they have a lot more time to devote to this than they would other things. They can really focus on it. It might be one reason. But Karen Mazel, she's been one of the pioneers in ethics bowl in the community. She's a professor in Utah. She's quoted in the book at length about how a student wrote to her after the competition, was very engaged during the competition, saw a New York Times article that was related back to a case that they had discussed, took the time to write an additional analysis about it. So can't say enough good things about those folks. I've not had the pleasure to work with them myself. And of course, this wouldn't be true of all incarcerated individuals. I mean, I believe that everyone has some capacity for rehabilitation. I would certainly invite them to participate in ethics bowls. But Karen was very proud of a particular standout student in that context.
Excellent. This is the solution ethics bowls. to fix a problem that's very widespread globally, nationally, in small communities. What do you think is, and you don't write a ton about this, so maybe you don't care about this part, you just want to solve the problem, but what do you think is the problem that's making us so quick to not active listen, not engage respectfully, not be willing to change our minds? It like where are we supposed to learn these great tools for reasoning and discussing? Because it seems like we could learn it by reading your book and performing accordingly, or any of the different resources on ethics bowls. But where are we supposed to learn this stuff if not through ethics bowls?
Any good college or other level philosophy classroom. What Ethics Bowl does is it extends the
Mm.
highbrow, truth-oriented, solution-oriented, collaborative pursuit of the truth that philosophy professors practice all over the world. It really
But you
takes
don't
that
learn philosophy in K through 12 usually, and
usually,
in college it's an elective. So
right?
like you can have a
It-
PhD and never take philosophy.
yeah, there's a lot of emphasis on critical thinking, or what people talk about as critical thinking, which is our specialty. It's built into the background of philosophy. And there are a lot of private schools that participate in ethics bowls, and in some cases they will have devoted philosophy classes and philosophy instructors. But you're exactly right that in public schools it's hardly taught at all. I have a doctorate in philosophy, of course, but whenever I first took philosophy as an undergrad, I stumbled into an elective class. I had no idea what academic philosophy was. No idea. I'm from East Tennessee. I'm sure there's some people around in East Tennessee that are all about philosophy. I know there are now, connected with them. But back then, the circles that I ran in and my family and such, if they knew about it, they never told me. So I had to figure it out on my own. But and I've had students come up and tell me the same thing that I was telling my professors back then, which was people have been thinking about these ideas about the ultimate nature of the universe and what it means to be a just citizen, and what the ideal forms of government are, what it means to be a good person. They've been thinking about this for hundreds of years, and they've written all this down and they've built on one another's ideas. I can't believe this. I've been thinking about this on my own in isolation, just in my head. So it doesn't resonate with everyone, but it definitely resonated with me. I wish more people had access to it, and that's the original reason I got involved with ethics law. I went to an Association for Practical and Professional Ethics conference meeting when I was in graduate school at the University of Tennessee, and I went to a pre-college philosophy interest meeting hosted by Roberta Israeloff of the Squire Family Foundation. And Roberta was presenting on ethics bowls as a way to promote pre-college philosophy. I'd never even heard of ethics bowls at that point. But I love the idea. I love the format. I love the fact that it could spread philosophy beyond academia, give people access to it earlier in life. And so I was traveling with John Hardwick at the time. He was the department head at UT. And on the way back, I said, John, if you'll fund this thing, I'll organize it. And he said, okay. So I went back and worked with some graduate student buddies and founded the Tennessee High School Ethics Bowl. And then the rest is history.
Yes, I see some of that history in the acknowledgments there. So, talking about realizing that people have been talking about this for hundreds of years, going back to 399 BC, who who is this guy? Can you tell us who this man is? Why is this the featured person on here?
Well, there's our buddy Super Socrates. And as I say in the book, that represents all the folks that are involved in the Ethics Bowl. Um, that's intended to honor them. That was one purpose of the book. One purpose was to convince the debate community to give Ethics Bowl a try. But another purpose was to inspire and reinvigorate the Ethics Bowl community, because I knew there were so many folks all across the country and all around the world doing this awesome work. I knew it had all this potential, but Ethics Bowlers tend to be more reserved. They tend to be more humble, which is usually a good thing. But since this has so much potential to combat the divisiveness and the political violence and such, and to really change the world, part of the call in the book is to inspire them to be more vocal proponents of the competition. But of course, Socrates himself, he's the grandfather of the Western philosophical tradition, the mouthpiece of Plato. He was a gentleman that was a social gadfly in ancient Athens, and he went around discussing all sorts of cool topics interesting philosophical topics with folks from all walks of life. And one mistake he made was he asked too many powerful people too many difficult questions, and he made them rather mad. And so they brought about some trumped up charges. Yeah.
And that's why.
Yeah. Yeah, they brought about some charges, something to do with corrupting the youth and dishonoring the gods of Athens, whatever. The real mistake he made, which we honor in the philosophical community, is speaking truth to power. And he was sentenced to death for that. And he gladly, I don't know about gladly, but he accepted his fate, and he was encouraged by his friends to escape and to flee. And they've made a path for him to do that. He said, "No, I'm going to accept my fate. I respect the decision of my fellow citizens through the Republic." And so we have all of these dialogues from Plato about with Socrates engaged with different characters that provide so much wisdom. And it's been said that all of the Western philosophical tradition after Plato has just been a footnote because there was so much of a foundation that was laid during that period.
And Socrates, of course, was not decapitated. My statue just broke. He died by hemlock poisoning, as we know,
Yeah,
which he agreed to drink.
yeah.
Dr. Matt Deaton, thank you so much for your time. I really hope that lots of people pick up this new book and start reading and applying the principles.
Sahar, thank you so much. It's been my pleasure. Thanks so much for honoring the Ethics Bowl way, and I hope I've convinced you to use a little bit of this within your classrooms.